I'm sure all of us would like to be playing golf out in Howth at the moment, and hopefully it will not be too much longer before we can do that. This evening, I will look at what is meant by handicap index, how it is calculated, and the associated handicaps that are derived from it. I will then look at what this means for you before, during, and after your round of golf. And I will talk briefly about what it will mean for us going forward. So you have all now been allocated an initial handicap index. This has been calculated based on the average of the best 8 out of your last 20 scores. This is a moving average. So as you submit a new score, the last score of the initial 20 drops off. And this will continue like this as more scores are submitted. This ensures that your handicap index is continually updated and should reflect how you are playing at a given time. There are no 0.1 increases, no handicap categories or buffer zones going forward. These were all elements of the old Kongu handicap system and are not now relevant. Your handicap index is your mobile or portable handicap. That is, you need to know what it is when playing both in your home course and, more importantly, if you are playing on an away course. But it's not the handicap you use on the course you are playing. It is converted into a course handicap. And I'll talk about that in a bit more detail shortly. Many of you will have already signed on to the new Golf Ireland website and the section My Golf to look at your own details. For those who have not done so already, it is very straightforward. You just need your CDH number and PIN, and both of which are included on the back of your ILGU membership card. When you log in, you will see your up-to-date handicap index, including the date it was last updated. And this is what you see, my WHS handicap index. And in this example, which happens to be me, is 18.5. And it also tells you when it was last updated. The other interesting thing is it shows where your handicap index falls within the total handicaps within Howth Golf Club, within Dublin and within Ireland. You will then see details of the competitions you've played in, and those marked with a dot are the scores that are included in the handicap, in the calculation of your handicap index. And just to understand a couple of what these columns mean, the slope and course ratings are elements that reflect the degree of difficulty of a course. And these will be unique to individual golf courses and indeed to sets of tees on these courses. So the slope rating for the 18-hole red tees, so the ladies' tees in Howth, is 128. And the course rating is 73.6, what we used to call our standard scratch of 74. The adjusted gross score is basically the number of strokes you took for that particular round of golf. It is called adjusted because it has to take into account the situation where, for example, a hole is started but not completed. In other words, you picked up the ball in a Stableford competition. And I'll refer to how that's calculated later. The PCC is the Playing Conditions Calculation. This is a measure that takes into consideration abnormal course or weather conditions, causing scores to be unusually high or low on a given day. Basically, it's similar to our current competition standard scratch. So using all these elements, a score differential is calculated. And it is the average of your best 8 score differentials that gives you your handicap index. Some of you may look at your scoring record and think, I thought I played in more competitions than are shown here. So a key thing to know is that scores that were entered as no returns have not been included in the handicap index calculation. This will also be the situation going forward. So it is important that you return all scores in competitions. This shows an extract from the handicap section on irelandclubs.com. The value shown against handicap here is in fact your new handicap index. Our software suppliers have just not changed the name from handicap to handicap index, and this will be done in the next week. I've also asked them to remove the rounded value here, as this is not relevant for a handicap index. So I mentioned earlier that your handicap index is not the handicap you use while playing. It is converted into what is called a course handicap. So depending on the slope rating of the course you are playing, your handicap index is converted to a course handicap, and your course handicap reflects the number of strokes you receive for handicap purposes. And your course handicap must be shown on your scorecard. And just to complicate things a little bit further, for competition purposes, you will be allocated a playing handicap. And that's based on the format of the competition that you are playing. So for example, playing in a single strokes or Stableford competition, your playing handicap will be 95% of your course handicap. Whereas for a 4-ball, it will be 85%. In a match play situation, your playing handicap will equal your course handicap. In other words, it'll be 100% of your course handicap. So what does all that mean? Here's an example. Let's take the handicap index of 18.5. So playing in Howth off the ladies' red tees, that equates to a course handicap of 21. And if you were playing in a singles Stableford competition, that would be a playing handicap of 20. Again, a handicap index of 18.5. And if playing a 4-ball competition, that would equate to a handicap of 18. Let's say you were invited to play in another course. Again, your handicap index is still 18.5. So let's say you were playing in Sutton Golf Club. The slope rating in Sutton is lower than the slope rating in Howth. So in that instance, your course handicap, if you were playing in Sutton, would be 20, not 21, 20. And your singles, playing in a singles Stableford competition, it would be 19. And again, similarly, for a 4-ball, it would be 17. So let's move on now to see what happens before your round. How will this practically work? One of the aspects of the World Handicap System is that you have to pre-register your intention to have a score included for handicap purposes. This is assumed when you enter a formal 18 or 9-hole singles competition. You can decide to enter a score for handicap purposes also from general play, that is not in a formal competition. You must pre-register your intent before playing, and of course your round must be played with and confirmed by a marker. For both competition and general play scores, pre-registration will take place on irelandclubs.com, as we enter them currently do. However, one slight change here is that you have to pre-register on the day of the competition. So you'll not be able to enter, for example, the night before. When you enter a competition on irelandclubs.com, your handicap index, course handicap, and playing handicap will be displayed. There will also be conversion tables displayed in the ladies' locker room and elsewhere around the clubhouse, possibly on the display board on the way to the first tee. And as I mentioned previously, your course handicap must be included on your scorecard. We will look at changing scorecards so that all 3 values can be included. In other words, your handicap index, your course handicap, and playing handicap. Obviously, it would be so much easier if we could print labels with all the relevant information. And so we are looking at how we can do this in the short term and obviously further on as we go forward. This is an example of a conversion table for our ladies' tees for an 18-hole in Howth. You're going to see these conversion tables in every golf club around the country, around the world now. So let's assume a handicap index of 12.5. So you find it here in the whatever range it falls into. So 12.5 will fall into a range 12 to 12.8. And under course handicap, you see that that equates to a handicap of 14. So if you happen to go to any club around the country, around the world, and you know what your handicap index for that course that you are playing, you can then determine what course handicap you can play off. So during your round, how do you complete your scorecard? Well, basically, you enter the strokes taken for each hole, and this must be confirmed with your marker. For a hole not completed, you now need to enter NR. For example, in a stable for a competition where you've picked up the ball, rather than a 0 or a dash. So NR needs to be included. For handicap purposes, your gross score will be recorded as a net double bogey for that hole. And this is an example of how the adjusted gross score that I mentioned earlier is calculated. For a hole not played for a valid reason, you need to enter NP on your scorecard. A valid reason might be loss of light, injury, or illness. In such circumstances, a gross score is recorded, which is equivalent to a net par for the holes not played. And when fewer than 14 holes are completed for an 18-hole round, the score for the first hole not played is recorded as net par plus 1 stroke, and then a net par going forward. So blanks and dashes no longer acceptable on a scorecard. And for a score to be acceptable for handicap purposes, there is a minimum of holes that you must play. This is 10 for an 18-hole competition, and in fact, it's all 9 for a 9-hole competition. So after your round, what do you need to do? Well, the first thing is to get a great mug of coffee from the tram chowder. And I must say I'm looking forward to doing that myself. You must enter your score into irelandclubs.com, as we do at the moment. And this should be done as soon as possible after your round. Your score should be entered no longer than 7 p.m. at the moment. We will review this timeline, obviously, for the summer months to facilitate people who may be playing late in the afternoon. You should leave your scorecard in the box provided in the ladies' locker room, and all scores entered on a particular day are uploaded to the centralized handicap system just after midnight, and your updated handicap index will be available to you early the next morning. So going forward, we'll hopefully get back to playing golf in early December. And I suppose the key is your handicap index is your responsibility. And I suppose one of the main changes in this new system is that the handicap committee will not be in a position to inform you of any changes to it. Currently, if your handicap reduced, you would get a text from me giving you details of your new exact and playing handicap. Similarly, all handicap changes, whether increases or reductions, were posted in the ladies' locker room together with a complete listing of all handicaps. Because handicap indices could potentially change every day, it will not be possible to display an up-to-date listing in the ladies' locker room as before. However, the Golf Ireland website will have your up-to-date handicap index available each morning. They are also due to bring out a mobile app in the new year, and this should make it easier for you to check your handicap index. IrelandClubs.com will also have your up-to-date handicap index each morning, and will also have a full listing of handicaps for all club members. For competitions played in December, assuming that we get to play a few competitions in December, we will run them as not qualifying for handicap purposes, so that we can all get used to dealing with handicap indices, course handicaps, playing handicaps, etc. For competitions during January and February, we will take a decision at the end of December as to how we want to run them. IrelandClubs.com will be updated to include all the details of it has currently your handicap index, and of course to include then course handicap and playing handicap depending